All right, so we got an update here on the Andrew Cuomo nursing home corruption story in New York. It looks like now he is actually going to be facing legitimate impeachment attempts coming from some Democrats and some Republicans in New York. So we've been kind of keeping up with this story. I did a video a while back that was covering the CNN fluff pieces with Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo, his brother, who's a CNN anchor. And he was just bringing him on to do these little brother banter segments for like liberal wine moms at home who were freaking out and wanted to make Andrew Cuomo the president in place of Joe Biden. But all the while that was going on and Andrew Cuomo was not facing any questions, there were New York lawmakers like Ron Kim, who I'm about to read you his op-ed that he put out calling for the impeachment of Andrew Cuomo, who were actually trying to sound the alarm about this corruption scandal that was going on at the time. And Andrew Cuomo, it looks like, has actually called him on the phone and threatened him for trying to expose some of this corruption. So I'm going to go ahead and read you this op-ed and we'll talk about it. So by now, much of the world has seen New York's Emmy award-winning governor and the COVID-19 hero, Andrew Cuomo, come under fire for New York's growing nursing home scandal. So basically just a very quick reductive rundown of what happened. Andrew Cuomo took major campaign donations from private nursing home groups. And in return, basically, when the pandemic started taking off, and Andrew Cuomo made a horrible decision to send recovering COVID patients back into nursing homes, which led to excess deaths, he then turned around in exchange for those campaign donations and gave complete corporate liability shields, similar to the ones that the Republicans were pushing that we were calling a red line in the sand, don't cross that. It was actually Andrew Cuomo who's one of the first people pushing for those corporate liability shields, in this case for nursing home executives, so that they couldn't be held liable for putting people in unsafe conditions. Again, this is very similar to the bill or the corporate liability shield that was being pushed by the Republicans earlier in the pandemic. And I mean, this is very obviously a corrupt and terrible thing. You need accountability in this situation, because if you are giving them a blank sheet to act however they want with complete immunity, then yeah, these for-profit nursing homes are probably not going to be heavily investing in safety, and they're probably going to cut corners and put a lot of people at risk that didn't need to be placed at risk. And in addition to giving them those corporate liability shields, then afterwards, as lawmakers like Ron Kim started to notice what was happening and started calling him out about it, they changed the way that they were counting the nursing home deaths. And it has now recently come out that there was actually a legitimate cover-up for those nursing home deaths, so that lawmakers would not have tried to undo that liability provision. And we have all of these updates here that he talks about in this piece. So there you go, just a quick reductive rundown. But a March 25th directive forcing nursing homes to take in patients who had tested positive for COVID-19 led to the spread of the disease among New York's most vulnerable population. And then, to cover his tracks, the governor may have obstructed justice by suppressing life and death data from the Department of Justice. His office underestimated the number of nursing home deaths by up to 50%. By up to 50%. I mean, we're talking about thousands and thousands of people here. Okay, so it's no small number to just gloss over. But these actions, which Cuomo's aide Melissa DeRosa admitted in a call with Democratic lawmakers that I was on, implicated all of us in the governor's cover-up. It would be the first of multiple attempts to do so. On a private call, the governor berated me, threatened my career, and demanded that I issue a fabricated statement. He wanted me to deny what I heard on the call. Quote, "Are you an honorable man?" he yelled. "Who do you think you are?" This, too, was an attempt to rope me into his scheme. Just a little bit more on what he said on this call. He also, Ron Kim says, Governor Cuomo called me directly on Thursday and threatened my career if I did not cover up for Melissa DeRosa and what she said. He tried to pressure me into a statement, and it was a very traumatizing experience. Quote, "We're in this business together and we don't cross certain lines," Kim said the governor told him. He also said Cuomo told him that he hadn't seen his wrath and that he can destroy me. So just, I mean, ridiculous mob-like behavior here. I mean, literally acting like a mob boss in this situation, calling people up and threatening their careers just for exposing corruption that is legitimate corruption that needs to be exposed by fellow lawmakers who could then hold him accountable for that. But of course, Andrew Cuomo acting like the mob boss that he is. Those of us who have worked with Cuomo are familiar with his tendencies. There is a long pattern of abusive tactics that the governor deploys when the public gets too close to learning the truth. Cast a net far and wide, compromise as many unwitting accomplices, threaten retribution, then berate you for having the temerity to stand up. He says, I witnessed a crime, and on top of that, 15,000 nursing home residents died under his watch. Restoring faith in government for those families is my top and only priority, not the governor's PR image. The truth behind the obfuscation and lies is this. The governor snuck a toxic corporate immunity clause in the 2020 budget on behalf of his top campaign donor, the Greater New York Hospital Association. You don't need a PhD to understand that handing out get out of jail free cards to for-profit nursing homes in the middle of a pandemic will lead to more deaths. Obviously, yes, like what I was just talking about, this is why we opposed the Republicans when they came out with their version of a corporate liability shield that was supposed to go out to basically all companies during the course of the pandemic. This is why we called it out, because believe it or not, for-profit companies are going to put their profits ahead of worker safety, and especially during a pandemic when that safety is in even more jeopardy, it's important to make sure you're cracking down on these companies to make sure that you're following safe guidelines and that they're not cutting corners in a situation like this and causing excess deaths that don't need to be happening. But of course, Andrew Cuomo pushes that before anybody else. So he did it quietly and last minute, masking the provision under the guise of protecting frontline workers from lawsuits, which, if true, would have been redundant because he already passed a March 23rd executive order that gave frontline workers legal immunity for treating COVID-19 patients. But once the lobbyists asked for a broader shield for the corporate executives and shareholders behind for-profit nursing homes and hospitals, Cuomo needed to implicate others. On January 28th, the New York State's Attorney General, Letitia James, announced that the administration underreported nursing home deaths by 50%. The corporate immunity very possibly led to more deaths at for-profit nursing homes and has made it impossible to hold those responsible accountable. With the truth out, the wheels started coming off the bus. The AG's report forced a Cuomo administration to finally meet with us, and after 7 months of stonewalling, his top aides wanted to discuss the delay in reported nursing home data. Then the bombshell dropped. Melissa DeRosa admitted to withholding the numbers from the Department of Justice for political purposes, and we reached a point of no return. We had an ethical duty to stand up to the governor or become accomplices, and he's doing the right thing here. Ron Kim refusing to capitulate to what Governor Cuomo wanted him to do in this situation, which was, like he describes, becoming an accomplice. So this is the type of situation where you see who people really are if they're willing to challenge somebody who is as powerful as Andrew Cuomo to call out this type of important corruption. So he says we cannot become numb to the fact that 15,000 people died in nursing homes under Cuomo's watch. If corporate immunity was omitted from the budget, how many lives would have been saved? 10%, 20%? That's 1,500 to 3,000 families who could be sitting across from a loved one at dinner tonight. That's an entire 9/11 tragedy that we could have prevented. We must hold the governor accountable and restore the integrity of the Senate and Assembly. As co-equal branches of government, we must put all options on the table in order to get the truth, etc., etc. That's why Andrew Cuomo is being faced with impeachment right now, and I wholeheartedly support it because we've been keeping up with this as it's been going on. This isn't anything new, okay? We knew about the nursing home corruption months ago, way back at the beginning of the pandemic. And again, this is very simple, okay? He took donations from private nursing home groups, turned around, made a terrible decision that put thousands of people potentially at risk in those nursing homes, then turned around and gave immunity, legal immunity, to those same lobbying groups that had given him those campaign donations. And then on top of that, he did a cover-up with the data that would have been used by these lawmakers in order to undo some of that damage that Andrew Cuomo was making with his decisions. So there was a cover-up, there was corruption, and then a cover-up, and then berating and trying to intimidate fellow lawmakers in order to not be called out and held accountable for this. So, you know, this is really simple in my opinion. He absolutely deserves to be impeached. I wholeheartedly support it. I don't care if it's a majority of Republicans or Democrats who are participating in this impeachment on the grounds and on the merits of the impeachment himself. I mean, there's really like multiple different things that you could be impeached for in this circumstance. It's a total abdication of duty, and it led to excess death and suffering, and he needs to be held accountable for that.